Hello and welcome to the Backroads, and today we're back at LUDEN Automotive for, you've guessed it, yet another oil change, our most popular kind of video on the channel. Today we're going to be doing an oil change on our Audi A4 Avant S-Line. Now, this has been a little bit overdue. We wanted to do this earlier in the year, but we haven't got round to it. So now is the perfect opportunity to get new oil into this car. So what kind of oil are we going to be using? Well, we are going to be using Castrol 0W30 oil in this, which is what is recommended. However, we're also going to be adding a little bit of Marvel Mystery oil in there as well to get the tappets and the injectors a little bit healthier. So really we should be using 5W30 for that, but we'll work it out. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Okay, so before we get into actually doing the oil change, might as well show you what we're going to be dealing with. So this is a standard, well, not a standard, it's an S-Line, but it's not the Quattro, but it has got the 2-litre TFSI engine, which is a turbo engine. Has around 197 brake horsepower, so it's actually technically the second fastest car in the TBR fleet, which is quite ironic, behind the Porsche. So it's actually not too bad. It's a fairly clean engine bay. As you can see, nice turbo written over the top, so you can remind yourself exactly what kind of car you're driving, and also because, quite frankly, you can see it. It is massive. So that's always pretty good. So this should be a fairly simple video, really. We're pretty well experienced with oil changes. It's not like we're doing spark plugs because that's been done already. This is just an oil change service. So fingers crossed, no hiccups. However, we don't have access to a ramp, so we're actually doing this how you would potentially at home on your driveway. So fingers crossed, all goes well. Okay, so car is jacked up. Now for reference, or any of you who are coming here to look how to do an Audi A4 oil change in particular, the jacking points on these cars are really weird. And by weird, I mean they're not exactly practical. So obviously you've got the two either side on the sills, and there's arrows indicating where you can jack up. But what we really needed was somewhere on the front and the back. So on the front, we've used the subframe. Not ideal, but it seems to be okay with the weight that we put on it. And then we put jack stands on the front. And at the rear, we had to use, what was it? It was the rear
the suspension arms.
Because there's nowhere to jack in the middle at the back. So not ideal. Thank you, Audi, for making it incredibly difficult to get this car level. It still isn't perfectly level, admittedly, but it's much better than it was just being jacked up by the front. So not ideal conditions, but sometimes these things go that way. So now the car is up, let's try and get some oil out. For future reference, 19mm socket does fit the sump plug underneath here, presuming it is a sump plug, which it looks like it is. Hopefully that means that this should, so in theory we should be okay. What I'm going to try and do is we'll try and put the bucket here, and I might actually try and do it from the other side because the sump is small enough that I should be able to get leverage on the other side here. So
it's a very small sump for a 2-litre engine.
It is, isn't it? It is very small, but hopefully it all goes well, because we've already taken like an hour trying to get it jacked up because there's no freaking proper jacking points. Yeah, we'll see how this goes. Yes. Well, that's easier for a change. Normally when we do oil changes, it takes an age to get the bloody sump off. I don't think we've ever had it where it's taken so long for the oil to come out. Come on. Seriously? Oh, there we go. Fantastic. It does come off. It's fine. That's pretty black oil. That is certainly not ideal. That is for sure. So thank God we are actually putting some nice new oil in it. Now you won't be able to see this, but I can. But actually in my oil on my fingers there are tiny fragments of metal. So this isn't a bad idea that we're doing this now, because it was due an oil service regardless. But So if you zoom in really closely on my fingers there with the oil, you might be able to see that there's actually fragments in the oil there. Very tiny. You may not be able to see it properly, but yeah, so not a bad idea that we're doing this, really. But we'll see what happens. We'll clean up this sump plug. Really, we should have a new crush washer. We don't have one, which is not great, but it's okay. It's fine. So next we will try and get the oil filter off, because then more will come out, and then we'll be able to fill it up again, and we should be good to go. It's always these bloody oil filters that defeat us. Always. We never ever have the right socket size, and when we do, it then is not easy to access. I don't know why, but somebody at Audi thought it was a fantastic idea to put the oil filter right above the anti-roll bar, so I've got no access to it, and decided that the end you need to screw in is at the bottom, not the top. Go figure. So, yeah. This may take a while. No. Okay, so situation report. Oil filter won't budge. We've got a wrench, or whatever you want to call it, socket wrench, that does fit, but there's no leverage. So just for your reference, before you delve into this, it is a 36mm shallow socket you need for the oil filter. So what we've got to do now is we've now got to leave the car here. We've got to go to our local auto parts shop and try and pick up a 36mm shallow socket. Hopefully they have it. If not, we're pretty screwed, because car's now got no oil, can't get the oil filter off, and really this needs to go back tonight. So worst case scenario, we're gonna have to do something that you're really not meant to do, which is put oil in on an old oil filter, which is something we really don't want to do. So we'll see. New toys. So we've been to Halfords. It's been about an hour since we were last doing this. It's now 4 o'clock in the evening. Actually 4:30.
It's 4:45 now.
4:45. So technically this
That's not going to focus.
This job, this simple oil change, has taken us 4.5 hours.
I wouldn't say that's true.
Well, it kind of has. We started at what?
12?
Yeah, so it's nearly 4.5 hours. Because there was a bit of downtime
true.
in between.
This
So
is true.
4.5 hours to do a freaking oil change, and we haven't even done the oil filter yet. But on the plus side, we now have something, because our backs and jeans were getting like super oily. So we got this now, so we can actually lay down on something. So let's try again. 36mm shallow socket. So fingers crossed that oil filter is not going to be on there very much longer. Okay, so is it going to work?
You're about to get so much oil in your eye.
Yeah, we also might need a longer extension. There's some sort of a cap. Don't know if you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this will work now. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but so I apologize. But yeah, some weird stuff's happening right now. So we're about to find out. So I will tell you if we're successful. Oh, that is sweet satisfaction right there. That is 2 hours of work or not working. Oh, well, never say in the comments that we don't give you the realistic side of trying to do this frickin' stuff yourself, instead of a 10-minute video on YouTube showing you how bloody easy it is, because it's not. Well, it should be, but it's not.
Well, it's easy if we would have bought the right tools beforehand.
That does help, but not everyone has that. So we're given a realistic interpretation. Perhaps the single worst oil filter design I've ever seen. Ever.
I've seen worse on other Volkswagen cars.
Who thought this was a good idea? It's everywhere.
Your subframe won't rust if it's covered in oil from the filter though.
I mean, that is true. However, we're going to need some Jesus Christ. God damn it. This isn't going to plan. We're going to need some gloves and some tissue. The subframe is now blocking the casing from coming out. So unless there's something very, very obvious that we've missed, which I somehow doubt, yeah, not sure. Ah, there we go. Ah! God damn it. Okay. Thanks, Audi. Look at this. Look. It's awful. Awful, awful, awful design. It's come out. Great. Okay, so for reference why it's important to change your oil filter. Our current one, or previous one that is in the car, is, how should we say, not in good fettle. It's warped, it's absolutely caked in dirt and metal and chips and all that kind of stuff. So it's clearly done its job, but our one looks like that when it should look like that. So, yeah, well overdue. So the one thing you should do with the O-ring that you put in to replace the old one, although this one didn't even have one to begin with, so go figure, is put a little bit of new oil around it, just so that you can seal it a little bit better. Obviously new oil has got much better properties than older oil, so when it comes to sealing correctly, it should be fine. So all you need is a little bit on your fingertip and just rub it around the edge, and that should be all good. So now I think we're pretty much ready to put this back in the car, get some oil in it, and then hopefully it runs. Okay, right, let's have a little look where we gotta be. I'm gonna move this here, so I reckon we're safe to go back underneath that. Oh. Well, new filter's on. I want to find the person that made that, and I want to personally make them do it 100 times a day. Because my God, is that the most painful thing I've ever had to do to a car. Oh. But it's on, it's on. I don't want to have to do this ever again. I'm just saying. Honestly, I can understand why the service place that did the last service may have actually skipped doing the oil filter, because not that they should have, but that's understandable. Cool, so now, finally, we're doing up our sump plug again. So it means we're nearly there. Once this is done, we're then on to actually adding the oil back into the car. We're going to add a little bit, only a small amount, because we've already got quite thin oil of Marvel Mystery oil, because it's always very, very good to add to your car. Just keeps things like the injectors nice and clean. You can also add it to fuel, so that's what cleans the injectors. If you add it to oil, it cleans all the pistons and that kind of stuff out. So you have better combustion and that kind of thing. It also reseals, not reseals, but re-lubricates a lot of the O-ring and all the inside plastics inside the engine. So that's quite good for if you're trying to, decrease oil consumption. Sometimes it can help with sorting that. So let's see what we can do. Oil time. So Castrol Edge 0W30 is recommended for this particular Audi A4 Avant. So fingers crossed, we should be okay. I can't imagine that we'll have too many problems. So without further ado, let's fill this utter bastard up.
I have spotted one problem with Audi's design logic, is they have a small little clip thing. I can't put a filter in later. Don't fit. Jesus.
Oh, that was a nice noise, wasn't it?
Nice.
So now I think we'll add a tiny, tiny little bit of Marvel Mystery oil, because this thing is absolute gold dust. It really is. Marvel Mystery oil, some of the best additives you can ever add to oil, and fuel. Same, does similar sort of stuff to Red X, but has a few more properties which are more useful. So Red X you can normally only use in fuel system unless it says otherwise on the packaging. This you can use in both. So this can go in fuel and in oil. Pretty much, it basically cleans up everything and makes everything much more healthy. So any like carbon deposits that are on the injectors, any carbon deposits that are on the pistons, that cleans up spark plugs. Also re-lubricates all the seals, like I said to you earlier. So we're only going to add about 100 ml to the oil here, because obviously it's quite thin oil anyway, and Marvel Mystery Oil can make oil ever so slightly thinner, so we don't really want that. So we're just going to put 1 ml in, and that should be it. 1 ml, 100 ml. Fingers crossed, it works.
Or just one more.
Or just one more.
I'll have just one more.
Okay, so should be startup time now. Okay, startup time. Moment of truth to see if we've actually done what we're meant to do. Ooh, that was a good sound, wasn't it?
Made a very weird noise at the start.
I wonder if that's because the oil hasn't cycled through yet.
Probably, yeah.
It sounds healthier. Doesn't sound so like diesel engine, does it? Now, so victory. So that's it. It's done, and thank God for that, because quite frankly, that is the single worst oil filter I have ever come across. And if you are here to find out exactly how to do an oil change on an Audi A4 Avant, there's your answer. It's an absolute ball ache. And if we had a lift, perhaps it wouldn't have been so, well, I mean, we do have lifts here, but they're all being used. It wouldn't have been as bad, but this is a really good example of how it could go on your driveway, for example. So, would I recommend it? Yes, because you save money. Do I recommend it in terms of time? No. It's taken us all day to do an oil change. So, partly that is our fault, not having the correct socket for the oil filter, but that thing is bad. So, it swings around about. But we hope you enjoyed. If you have any comments that you think we may have missed out on our oil change today that is specific for the Audi A4 Avant, please put them in the comments section below. We're not trained mechanics, we're just like you trying to do this ourselves. If you did enjoy, please leave a like and subscribe if you're new around here for more content. Until next time guys, take care. We'll catch you in the next one.